Welcome to Shalom World Podcast.
Welcome to the latest episode of Family Podcasts on Shalom World's Podcasts.
This is Mike and Alicia Hernon of the Messy Family Project. What we're going to talk about today is parenting as a team. So, there are so many issues that parents have to navigate today. Educational choices, finances, discipline, right? But there is one X factor that comes in when parents have to work together, and that is unity. If parents don't have unity, all of the best advice that they get from podcasts or books or other experts is not going to work. But if they have unity, there is nothing that life throws at you that you will not be able to handle together.
Because think about it this way. If you've ever read a parenting book, oftentimes they'll say things like, and if you don't follow our method, you'll irreparably, permanently scar your children for the rest of their lives. And then you read another book that says the exact same thing, but it's the opposite advice. Parents are conflicted. They're looking for, the perfect way. We all want to be great parents. But it is more important that you don't have necessarily confidence in a method or a training or a program, but they have confidence in each other.
It's so important for us as parents to remember that neither one of us, neither mothers or fathers, image God perfectly by ourselves. It's only that when we're doing it together, when we are parenting together, that we can image God to our children. That's simply the way that we were designed. This is God's plan of family life.
Come together, we're all family.
We've brought in two experts, two friends to talk to us about this, Paco and Inez Gavrilidis, who have served the church in many capacities through their years in Parish Ministry at Sacred Heart Seminary in Detroit. So welcome, Paco and Inez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
And as we talk about this concept of parenting as a team, I don't know if it's an objective sometimes of the kids just to separate us, but enough of our, but on our own, it can be really challenging, right? And as we've talked in our ministry, so many of the problems that parents have often come back to the fact that they as couple may be on two different pages. Because we're very different people. Yes. And I don't know if you've experienced that or have seen that in couples that you've worked with.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Yeah. Many occasions where we've had conversations with, couples that are really working with their children, trying to raise them well. They will come to us individually and say, I just don't think my husband is on the same page with me or vice versa. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what I find is that sometimes they come and say that because they want you to be a judge and say,
referee.
Well, you're right, you're wrong,
That's
listen, right? But it doesn't always work that way.
For some, I think about it this way. Remember this couple who had come to us, and the wife was kind of complaining about the husband coming down too hard on the kids as a disciplinarian. The husband then came back and said, well, but she's being too soft. And there was probably truth to both of those. How do we begin that process of forming unity, of building something together? Because we made these kids together. So maybe we should try to figure out how to work better as a team.
You come across some obstacle, something's going on, one of your kids needs special attention or help in some area to either cooperate or stop doing something that's annoying the others. And, with Paco and I, maybe I would start some process because I was with them all day long. The mom is there. The mom is noticing.
Right.
Dad comes home from work, traditionally, and might see one of the kids who's just out of sorts. And I would say it's what's a beautiful thing that the mothers do is the mothers many times have to interpret the kids to the father. Paco also sees the family more, and the husbands, I think, tend to see like running of the family and helping is from a governmental place where the mom is nurturing and the dad is saying, honey, we can't let this go on. And so he's kind of, as I'm saying, well, it's going on like this. And he's saying, yes, but if we do this for the broader picture, you're going to find greater order.
It's kind of like the details in the relationship. Right. And then also the broad, where is this ship going?
Exactly.
You really need both. Would you agree, Paco?
No, I would agree with that. And I think one interesting dynamic or things that I think go on in the heart of a man who loves his wife and the kids together, sometimes you come home and you see the wife has been stressed because of the kids.
Yeah.
And so I'm committed to putting an order there to protect my wife, not only to bring the kids to good order.
Yes.
And she doesn't always realize how much I'm doing this for her.
My dad would say that all the time. So I'm the second of 10 children, and my dad would say, I need to protect your mother from
all
you children.
That's right.
And it's just like, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but there is some truth to that.
Right.
Because mothers especially tend to self-sacrifice.
Exactly.
Expend
really
themselves, give
expend
themselves
for their children, which is our instinct.
Right.
And that is needed to a certain extent, but that needs to be in balance with dad. And
that's right.
But how do you achieve that unity?
You know, Paco has brought this up to me too. It's like, whatever your history was growing up, how your parents dealt with disciplinary issues, is a lot of times you come into marriage, what other vision or picture do you have?
Absolutely.
But
That's
what
right.
you had. And if it wasn't really fine-tuned to the best place, then you bring that into the marriage and you don't realize there are better ways to do things sometimes.
No, what I'd say what we learn how to do, sometimes very peacefully and sometimes with a little tension, which was kind of coach one another in how we were handling a certain situation. Let's say
It's a great coach.
there's certain situations where a certain direction or discipline needs to be exercised, and Inez would be kind and gentle, but what they really needed was a word of authority and to be firmer about it. And so I would notice sometimes that she would be spending a lot of time trying to be patient, and I could just see that wick going down, burning down. And that would, at a certain point, cause her to be angry.
That's right.
And I felt bad about that.
Right.
But I would say to her, honey, let me handle it. Let me deal with it. If I'm there, with those kind of things there, because she had a very strong ideal of being loving and kind, which has been wonderful.
Yeah.
But there were times when they just needed to know that they needed to stop. And the authority of the father is something that really the kids experience. They experience it differently than mother. So I was able to do that, but I would coach her in the sense that I would say, now, just do it for a while and then look to me and let me handle it.
Right. Why do you think that unity is so important? Our unity as parents. Why is that so important for our kids?
If you really think of it, if the parents are on the same page, no matter what it is, whether it's what we're going to eat or where we're going to go and play or whatever it is, if they just know this is the way it is because this is what mom and dad, they will already instinctively infer whatever mom and dad are going to do. They're not going to think this out there, but is the best for us. If kids feel that mom and dad are not united or they're upset with each other, bam, immediately, I can promise you, there is fear that enters into the child's heart, fear of what's going to happen. I mean, all kinds of things can enter in, but I think the unity between the parents creates so much stability that even if some child is thinking, no, I don't want to do that, it'll only take a few minutes, and then they will self-correct, because they realize, I can't go anywhere with this. Mom and dad said this is how it is. So I think it creates just an amazing stability. I don't know what you would say, Paco.
I find that sometimes what the kids find helpful is the fact that the two of us are united, but we come at it as mom and dad.
From different angles.
So they get a fuller picture of the why and how this should be understood. And we've used our dinner table as a very, very important, it's a sacred time for us.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've worked out many things and talking through issues as the kids grew older and so on, about schedule and responsibilities in the house and all of that. And they can hear us both speaking. And we kind of are both ends of the table, so we can see one another, and I can support what Inez says, and she can support me. And if we differ on those situations, we don't say too much about that
in front of the kids.
Right.
And going back to the other point, sometimes I would discover that she said one thing and I said another. What's the question that comes? Why did you say that?
Yeah.
Why did you say that? And then, well, I said it because of this. Well, why did you say that? Well, I said it because of this. Oh. And then we have to say, okay, now what is it that we...
What do we say?
What do we say? How do we get to the right place on that?
Yes,
Right.
yes. This is an important thing, this dynamic of not only operating as a team, but it's a felt reality that your kids will know, hey, you know what? Dad backs up mom backs up dad. These guys... There is no daylight between the two of them, at least the appearance of, you know?
That's right.
And I think that's important. And one of the things you talked about, just keep talking and talking. One of the things that we do at the Messy Family Project is we encourage couples to do something we call the family board meeting. And this is a time where you as a couple are the board of your family Inc., right? You know, that we get away once a year and we kind of look at, where are we going? What's our bigger vision? Where are these kids? And then we look at each of the kids because it's hard to get on the same page when we have at least 10 kids and we're like, it takes all time just thinking through them.
That's right.
And the more that we can discuss, the more that we can have real fruitful conversations, the more that we are going to then be able to operate in a united way.
Right.
And there's just, and then even discussing that at your like family meetings, whether they're impromptu or planned, right? You know,
That's
Are
right.
there any strategies like that? Any techniques that you have used, whether it be communicating with your kids, and it sounds like you do a lot of kind of family meetings and stuff like that.
We've been the family talkers. We talk through things, and we Paco and I think, because even before we got married, we were like on the high end of wanting to talk through things. That's interesting too, because I guess you could say, well, some couples, depending on their temperaments and personalities, maybe you've got one spouse who just doesn't talk through things as much. One strategy is make a list of all the challenges and go through them one by one.
Yes.
How do we feel about what we allow our children to watch in terms of movies or anything on a television set?
That's right.
Device,
Screen,
Screens. What are we going to permit our children in terms of computer stuff? What are we going to permit our children, or what do we feel about gaming? I mean, this is get ahead of it, and that's what we've done.
Let me add just one thing.
Yeah,
Just
and we
keep
did
making the
that
list, but
kind of from the beginning.
one of the things that I think was really helpful was to say, what are they hearing from their friends? What are they struggling with in terms of these issues? Because sometimes they've heard, we are so aware now that our kids, once they walk out of the house, the world pounces right on them.
Absolutely.
And so we know that they're getting messages in different ways. And we need to be in touch with what their inner struggles are so that we can address them wisely and lovingly and help them even think through how to articulate it so that when the next time they're with their friends, they're going to be able to say something in a way that really reveals their Christian convictions.
Right.
So,
One thing I did want to ask you about is prayer.
Yes.
And the role of prayer. Because I was thinking about when we keep talking about unity, who is the great unifier? The Holy Spirit.
Absolutely.
Right? The Holy Spirit brings unity.
Yes.
And one thing, when couples come to us with problems, usually we ask them if they have problems in finances or in-laws or even in parenting.
Yes.
It all goes back to, are you on the same page with your spouse?
Right.
Have you and your spouse prayed about this together? Because I don't have all the answers for them. Mike doesn't have all the answers for them. But you know what I do know? I know that God has the answer. And I believe that when a couple comes together before the Lord and says, help us.
Show us the way.
Show us the way.
right.
Yeah.
That he's going to show up.
We came into our marriage very united in prayer. So that, again, we were maybe just a couple steps ahead, and that helped. I cannot tell you.
You had your own personal prayer life.
Personal
prayer life.
and then communal.
It was very natural for us to
very
pray together.
natural for us to pray together, both separately and then together on a daily basis. So, but when we came to loggerheads it didn't happen too often, but there were a couple things simple as like when we were having our third baby and we had they came bing, bang, boom, and we still only had one car and it was just a sedan. It was like, hey, we can't get the baby home from the hospital.
Right.
Because
we don't have room for the car seats.
All fit back there. And he was freaking out going, we don't have money to buy another car. And I was saying, God is bigger. I know, and Paco has a ton of faith in terms of God's provision. But at that moment, it was like, what are we going to do?
Right.
And I kept saying, honey, and he's like, I swear to you, we will get all 3 of those car seats in the car. I said, honey, let's go get them and measure them. He's like, no. So and finally I was so frustrated. I'm like, Lord, oh my gosh, and I'm getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
We need another car too. And so finally, again, and he was busy with work, and I got on, I was just praying, Lord, please show him. I was in a Blessed Mother, show him, St. Joseph, But we took things to prayer, and then finally Paco just went and prayed about it. And he came back, he said, Inez, you're right. Well, what was I thinking,
So God brought you on the right message.
Yeah, in that, other times he's done that with me. So prayer is so essential. And sometimes when you pray together, also you're humbling yourselves before God.
That's right.
Yeah.
And all the little proud, stuff that we all hold on to, when you're really you're humbling yourself. Then finally, I think you're ready to also listen.
And one of the principles we talk about, it's better to be
wrong
together than right alone.
Yeah.
Because, again, not in the moral world, but just in these prudential decisions of, do we buy this car? Do we discipline in this way? Do we go to this experience?
Right.
And it's like, it's better to be united. It's better to have a clear unity. And I feel like a discernment. If you're ever wondering what God's will is, being disunited is an easy discernment that's the wrong thing for you to do.
Exactly.
And the more that you can have that humility, that will bring you together.
Yeah, God is present within our unity.
Yes,
That's when where 2 or 3 are gathered, right?
Yes.
And it's like, okay, we're 2 coming together as a couple and going before the Lord. I know I had my sister shared with me a story about they had financial difficulties. Their car broke down. And they had spent their emergency fund on something else that was not really an emergency. And she said they didn't know what to do. And it was really, at the end of the day, it was the 2 of them just coming before the Lord, praying together and saying, Lord, we're your dumb children.
Yeah.
We're your stupid little children, Lord. Like
we screwed up.
We've messed up. We've made a mistake.
Yes.
Just forgive us, Lord. And I think that sometimes parents need to recognize that,
That's
even
right.
with their adult children, if they look back and they say, we should have done this, and this.
Regrets or...
Go to prayer and say, Lord, forgive us. We are here. And receive God's forgiveness. And at the end of the day, for them, they wound up having to take a loan and, not doing exactly what their financial plan was, but they were at peace because they were unified together. And they learned.
Right.
We learn from our mistakes.
That's right.
Not just individually, but we learn as a couple.
As a couple, right.
Yeah,
Right.
we
That's
learn as a
right.
couple how to come before the Lord and just ask the Lord for His blessing.
Right. That's true.
But thank you so much for coming and talking to us about this. This was a joy to just talk with other parents. And so I think other parents out there listening to know they're not alone, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All of us struggle with being unified as a couple. All of us struggle with that.
But there's great power in that.
But there is great power, and God is so faithful.
Yes.
Right?
Amen.
He is
Yes.
absolutely so faithful
He
to
is
us.
faithful.
So stay tuned as we summarize this great conversation about parenting as a team.
Come together, we're all family.
So I hope you really enjoyed our presentation about parenting as a team. So now we want to give you some very important ideas for you to implement with your spouse within your family. So number 1, present a united front. Children need your unity and stability to flourish. They need more than just the love of mom or the love of dad. They actually need your couple love. There is a complementarity between mother and father that is absolutely important because we as a couple image the Trinity. This is actually a spiritual thing that we do within our homes. So our children need us to work together. They need us to provide that sure foundation, that stable place for them to become who they were created to be. It's very important that remember, neither mom or dad can really serve our children and give them what they need by ourselves.
And the number 2 idea for you to implement is talk. Right? We need to talk to our spouses because communication is key. Your spouse cannot read your mind as much as we would like them to, right? And you can't be united without talking to each other. So talk about discipline, talk about household chores, finances, all of those things that need to be discussed with you as a spouse, right? Take the time to have those crucial conversations with each other. As parents, we sometimes get driven, pulled apart in many ways, shuttling kids and busy and urgent lives, right? But we need to not be able to shoot from the hip. We need to be not driven by what is right in front of us. We need each other, and we need that unity, and it only comes as part of communication.
And number 3, we really want to challenge you to defer to one another, as it says in Ephesians 5. That mutual submission is a very important part of coming together as one. So your unity is not like two pieces of cloth that's being sewn together. Your unity is actually two different metals that are forged together, and you create something entirely new. One of the things that we always say that you need to remember is that it's better to be wrong together than right alone. Now, of course, we don't mean morally, of course, but sometimes even the best idea, if you're not in unity with each other, it's not going to work. It's better that you have an idea that maybe needs some refinement, but you're doing it with your spouse, because your unity is the most important element of your marriage.
Right. So, and the fourth and final point, and it's a vital point, is pray individually and as a couple. Right? God covenanted himself to you, and he desires your unity, and his grace flows when you are united. So take time to pray for your spouse. Take time to pray as a couple. Ask for the grace to work together, to come up with a new plan together as a couple. This will change your family, and this will change your whole approach to parenting.
We hope this episode has been a blessing to you, and if it has, we ask you prayerfully consider supporting Shalom World so we can create more episodes, more shows like this that will serve families throughout the world.
Yeah, we've been excited and honored to partner with Shalom World on this, and we want to invite you and really encourage you to make a donation in support of Shalom World. No gift is too small, and no gift is too large. We'll take all donations to support Shalom World and continuing to evangelize the culture. All right, so there is a lot to talk about with this topic, right? Getting a united vision, getting on the same page with your spouse, really being a team, that united force that your family needs is vital for your family. So we want you to take time. Don't let this whole episode just walk away from you or wash over you, as Alicia would say. We really want you to internalize this and work on this as a great conversation for future dates for you and your spouse. How can you become more united?
And we will see you next time on our next episode with our very special guest, Sister John Paul, a Dominican principal who runs a school and helps form children in virtue. And she has some valuable lessons for parents on forming kids in virtue.
Yeah, and until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.